If you target our community, if you attempt to take advantage of the vulnerable in our community, we will arrest you and bring you to justice.
Agents expected pallets and paperwork. They found a staircase. Down one level, racks of servers. Down another, whiteboards with coded schedules, radio grids labeled for cross-state runs, and backups of encrypted data. This wasn't a stash spot. It was a logistics brain, quietly pushing hundreds of millions through America's supply lines. By night's end, 197 arrests followed across multiple sites. But the Leadership Council had already ghosted. Stay with this, because the room you're about to see explains how a cartel hid in plain sight for years. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. A locked door gave way to steel bracing, and behind it, a staircase that didn't belong to the building plans. That question, what needed to be buried under a warehouse, guided every move as the entry team split. The first minutes were straight mechanics, breaching reinforced roll-ups, cutting through a welded inner gate, then pushing past interior barricades built from pallet racking bolted into the slab. The floor plan on file showed a simple rectangle with office space along the north wall. What the team crossed looked nothing like that. A corridor had been framed inside the footprint, blind corners boxed with sheet steel, and a dead-end utility closet that hid a second lock. Hidden hinges, non-standard screws, fresh concrete around the threshold. They were already off the permit map. They expected a counting room or a small vault, maybe a pallet drop with taped bricks and a money counter on a folding table. Instead, the door opened into a second barrier and cool air rolled up the stairwell. The sublevel hummed like a data center. The temperature held at a steady chill, and the white noise of fans drowned the footfall. On the first landing, conduit bent in clean arcs tracked along the wall and vanished through a sealed bulkhead. The space didn't feel improvised. It felt engineered. At the bottom, racks of servers filled the left bay, each on rails, each with redundant power supplies and battery backups wired to a small transfer switch. Labeled fiber lines ran into a patch panel with color-coded sleeves, and a wall chart outlined handoffs for maintenance, which was a misdirect for device swaps. In the far corner, an RF-shielded alcove sat behind a copper mesh door, the frame bonded to ground. Inside, a narrow desk held a small set of test gear and a box of spare antennas. Along the right wall, shelves stacked with encrypted handhelds and mobile radios sat in charging cradles, each unit tagged and taped with pre-programmed frequencies and date stamps. You don't see that level of discipline in a neighborhood crew. Professional logistics operations live on redundancy and continuity. Mirrored drives let you lose a box and not lose the plan.
As a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. No bomb does what this is doing. 200 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of. So we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass.
Redundant comms mean a bad repeater or a seized handset won't stop the night's run. Route control keeps teams on lanes that avoid predictable checkpoints and choke points. Local outfits tend to rely on a single phone, a friend at a gate, and fixed meeting spots. This room signaled a different breed. Layers, backups, and processes meant to survive disruption. The labels matched interstate transport companies, but the catalog tags resolved to shell LLCS when run against the paperwork. Bills of lading and service receipts looked clean at first glance. Company names were familiar, fonts current, barcodes scannable. Drill down and the mismatch appeared. Short-term warehouse leases pushed through agents, insurance in minimum bands, and a registered office that rotated every quarter. That's how infrastructure-based crime hides. Load broker fronts that book freight like any small carrier. Temporary space that flips before season audits, and ownership masked by formations that exist just long enough to pass a look. Then the stairwell didn't stop. A second.
DEA says it's doubling down on its already considerable campaign against those who profit from the most lethal drug ever unleashed on the American public.
Flight dropped to a deeper level. Down there, whiteboards filled the wall, printouts clipped in rows, and color-coded grids covering weeks at a time. The timing didn't track with any normal delivery schedule. Holidays were flagged, but not for downtime. They marked increased flow. end-of-month windows were dense, handwritten initials sat beside time blocks, and arrows cut across states with no reference to store numbers or warehouse IDs you'd expect in retail or food service. The payoff in that space was simple and damning. Agents had found a hidden, multi-level command node. Servers for data continuity, coded comms on rotation, and route boards that set lanes across state lines. It was physical proof of a logistics brain operating inside ordinary commerce. And yet, the hardware was only half the story. The marks on those boards and the codes on the drives traced where the money moved and when it moved, which is where the trail started to accelerate. The boards looked like dispatch scribbles until agents overlaid the colors with fuel receipts and toll data from 3 states. The lines snapped into lanes. Color blocks aligned with pump times. Tolls hit.
If you target our community, if you attempt to take advantage of the vulnerable in our community, we will arrest you and bring you to justice.
In order, mile by mile. What looked like messy driver notes turned into a live route map that mirrored actual travel. The whiteboard grid wasn't a calendar. It was a rolling ledger of movement, risk, and payload type disguised as routine scheduling. Investigators started by assigning meaning. Each letter matched a corridor. N for a northern lane, E for a river-adjacent run, and paired letters for bypass options. Colors marked risk tiers. Green for low-pressure routes with minimal interdiction. Yellow for lanes with periodic enforcement. Red for paths that needed backup and alternate timing. Symbols split the mission type. A circle meant cash moving back upstream. A square meant goods moving forward. Triangles marked mixed loads where drivers carried both, with a scheduled handoff to rebalance risk mid-route. With that key, the board read like a manual. Then the churn surfaced. Codes shifted weekly. The call signs changed. Comms protocols rotated, and the duty roster used aliases that cycled on a 7-day clock. One set of initials worked the late window for 3 nights, then vanished for 2 weeks. The radios matched that cycle, with device IDs retiring after a set count of check-ins. It looked designed to take a raid, or a wire, and keep running. The timing in the grids tied to night runs that skipped way stations by hitting the open windows between scheduled staffing. Start times landed after dusk, with arrival stamps crossing tolls during low visibility hours when enforcement drops. They also leaned into bank holidays and end-of-quarter freight spikes. When retail loads flood the highways and carriers chase end-of-month contracts, extra trucks don't stand out. The board showed heavier flow on those dates with added alternates in case a lane got hot. Handwritten ticks next to major interchanges marked where a driver paused to make a time-on-target adjustment to sink back into the wave. Professionals ride the noise floor. They know geofencing gaps where monitoring is weaker, and they mirror the habits of commercial carriers that run long haul at night to hit morning delivery windows.
Formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. No bomb does what this is doing. 200 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of. So we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass.
They stack their moves inside legal norms, HOS clocks, common fuel stops, freight corridors. So lane selection never looks odd. Highways that carry perishables at 2 a.m. offer perfect cover, and they moved within that stream. Nothing flashy, just consistent timing where enforcement expects legitimate volume. The personnel side mirrored the lanes. Couriers logged by initials only, never full names. Managers appeared as route controllers, tagged with operator codes, not titles. Up top sat a small leadership grid, and every name on it was an alias. Next to each alias was a time-boxed key, a validity window for comms that expired on schedule. One alias passed off to another with a clean handover marked by a small checkmark. Anyone falling out of cycle didn't receive updates, which kept any single arrest from collapsing the whole line.
Just a blockade. We're not going to let anybody going through that shouldn't be going through. You remember they took all of our energy rights. They took all of our oil from not that long ago, and we want it back. But they took it. They illegally took it. Getting land, oil rights, whatever we had, they took it away because we had a president that maybe wasn't watching. But they're not going to do that. We want it back.
They took our oil rights. We had a lot of oil there. As you know, they threw our companies out.